Hey family, I want to have a quick discussion about melanin and sunscreen. We've been told a lot of things about melanin and sunscreen and whether melanated or black people need sunscreen or not. There's a lot of confusion about it, but I want to just give some credible facts and clear this up so we can have a proper perspective and move forward in truth. Now, we're going to start off with this page right here, but I'm going to start off by just saying that this is about who we are, so-called African people. This is not to degrade anybody else. This is so that we know who we are. All right. This particular page right here, this is Huffington Post, very credible site, and they're trying to bust a myth saying that black people do need sunblock. Okay, and they go on. You can see the website. You can get the address and pull it up. I just want to get into the particular part for the sake of time. Skin color is basically determined by melanin. Now, the more melanin you have, the darker your skin is. We're going to get into the different types of melanin here in a little bit, but right here, this is the main part that I wanted to focus on this page. It says people with light skin types have a much higher incidence of skin cancer than do people with dark skin types. But dark skin is not a guarantee against skin cancer. People with dark skin, hair, and eyes can and do get skin cancer. Particularly vulnerable areas include under the fingernails and toenails, on the palms of the hands, and on the soles of the feet where skin is lighter. Now, this is the confusion because the statement is true. What they said is true. Okay, but it is completely out of context. What I mean by that, yes, people with dark skin, hair, and eyes can and do get skin cancer. Particularly vulnerable areas include under the fingernails and toenails. But this type of skin cancer that you get under your fingernails and toenails and on the palms of your hand, that type of skin and on the soles of your feet, that has nothing to do with sunlight or UV rays. That is a different type of skin cancer than anything that this article should be talking about in relation to sunblock or sunscreen. The type of skin cancer that they're talking about here is actually the type of skin cancer that Bob Marley died from, and it's called acrolentigenous melanoma. Okay, that's the name of the type of melanoma that gets under your skin. Well, that under your fingernails and on the palms of your hand. This is what it looks like. This is what caused Bob Marley's death. It had nothing to do with sunlight. And it really frustrates me because even I heard a black doctor on a very popular podcast, and she was really trying to emphasize that black people do need sunscreen because we do get skin cancer, and she mentioned Bob Marley, and it's just a big confusion about this. But it says on here, the two forms examined as part of the research were acral and mucosal melanoma. You can see the website. You can see the webpage. It's abc.net. Says they are not caused by sunlight, unlike melanoma of the skin, cutaneous melanoma, which is strongly linked to UV radiation. Acral melanoma occurs under the palms of the hands, soles of the feet, while mucosal melanoma occurs on internal surfaces, including the respiratory, gastrointestinal tracts, and the mouth. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can do your own research, but Like I said, this is not an attack on anybody. Black people need to know, we need to know what is true about us. And now, because we're not in a culture of our own, then to talk to black people, it's hard to talk to black people without other people listening in. So it's not an attack to other people. I'm not even talking to them. I'm talking to black people. And we need to understand who we are, how we're made, what we can do, what we can't do. And we need our own boundaries set. We don't need boundaries set by other people. Okay, so it's just truth. Truth is freedom. All right. So now what makes us black is melanin, like I said. This young lady, she explains this very well. She explains this very well. She does a good job of breaking this down. I have no idea who she is. I just ran across her when I was doing, looking for some videos, and I decided to use her. Just listen to what she has to say. She actually says, this is not an attack on anybody. She kind of says the same thing, but she does a real good job of explaining what melanin is, basically. So just check her out, and then I'll be back.
I'm coming back with another quick video over melanin. I want to initiate this with, I don't intend on doing any kind of race baiting. That's not the purpose of my videos. It's really to explain exactly who we are as African people and counteract a lot of what we see in the media. Oftentimes you always see black people being demonized for something. We're always committing some kind of crime. And to really explain that, I want to show in the science that we're really great, and it's the opposite of what we're taught to believe from birth. So that's really the reason why I do these videos. It's not a reason to point fingers and make people feel as if they're bad. It's really to display to black people who we are and show us the science of our genetics. Now, with that being said, what is melanin? It is the pigment in our skin. It's what gives us the black and brown appearance. There are 4 types of melanin. You have neuromelanin that is created in a pineal gland. You have allomelanin that is in fruits, that is in food, that is in soil, fungi. You have it in plants. It is in various forms of the atmosphere, and you also have these types. Eumelanin, which is called true melanin, is black and brown, found in African people. And you have pheomelanin, or a pale or a dusky melanin, that is red and yellow, found in Europeans. We have these types of melanin found in our skin, hair, and our eyes. And this is what gives us the advantage of being African people, that U or true melanin. Even with the presence of it in our eyes, it's what allows us to put outfits together. It's what allows us to put a nice color scheme or palette together, because what we see having brown, dark brown eyes, pigmented eyes, is different from what other people see. The presence of melanin literally heightens the dimensions of all things. It's also a neurotransmitter. So if you think about, if most people have to go from receptor A to B to C to D, the African, having the presence of melanin, is able to go from receptor A straight to D. This is what allows us to run fast. This is what allows us to think fast. Freestyle rapping. This is what allows us to be able to do things like crump. The body is able to move at whatever degree that we need it to, but with the presence of melanin. It gives you the advantages of having the rhythm. When you look at European people and you think to yourself, why don't they have the natural rhythm that we have? Because they have very low degrees of eumelanin, if any at all. They're mostly based of pheomelanin. Eumelanin is present in melanomas or cancer moles that are located on their skin. But for the most part, eumelanin is found in African people. The advantages of that is the presence of eumelanin acts as a natural sun protectant. We learned that last week. This is what allows us to look 25 up until we're 90. Also, the presence of eumelanin is what takes the energy in from the sun and gives us the ability to produce vitamin D. The presence of vitamin D allows us to produce nutrients. So more vitamin D means your body is able to produce more nutrients. Wet nurses were the African slaves during slavery time that had to feed European babies their breast milk. The reason why is because around the areola of the breast milk of the African woman is eumelanin, allowing her to produce a very nutritious breast milk. And that's what they fed their European babies, because they understood that it was better for the baby. So the presence of melanin in high contents is what gives African people the advantage that we have. This is what allows us to sing well, dance well, think fast, be able to create so many inventions. It is important to understand that African people have created a lot of the inventions that we use every single day, even down to the very computer in which we're looking at. African people have a natural affinity for life due to the presence of melanin.
I'm not going to play the whole thing. You can clearly see. You can go to her page and check it out. I just wanted to give a basic idea of what melanin is. It is what makes our skin dark. So melanin is, this video that I'm making is about, particularly we're dealing with the issue of melanin and sunscreen. But we understand that melanin is a natural sunscreen. Okay, it's a natural sunscreen. I got another video I want to show you right quick. Just watch this right quick. Watch this.
Black is Caribbean, your black is America, and your black is Nigeria, your black is beautiful.
That is, when you put on sunscreen, you're doing what the melanin does, blocking the UV rays. Okay, so melanin is a natural sunscreen. Now, black people were made to be in the sun. Okay, black people were made to be in the sun. White people were made for less sunlight and colder climates. It's just what it is. White people don't do well with too much sunlight. Blacks don't do well with not enough sunlight. This is why a lot of black people, and even she explains in this video, go a little further, but it's black people normally have a low level of vitamin D, or they're usually deficient in vitamin D, and that is because of the melanin that's blocking the UV rays that are actually in contact with our skin. It produces vitamin D. But because we have more melanin, we actually need more sunlight. But we were created to be in Africa, right? We were brought over here from Africa. So when we were over there, we had plenty of sunlight, and we weren't wearing as much clothes. So this is why a lot of black people have a deficiency in vitamin D. Just have to research that out. But it's the truth. Now we get into the core of all of this stuff, because many times the way it's presented to us, they present it to us in a way that just makes it seem like there's something wrong with black people with all these, deficiencies, even the high diabetes, different things like that. And she explains, as well as other people, that much of that is the food that we eat. All of these things that are supposedly hereditary. Most of what's hereditary is our eating habits. But black people were made to be in the sun. White people were made for less sunlight. Black people need more sunlight. Okay, so when white people try to live in places with more sunlight, they don't do well. Now, we're getting back on skin cancer, because the two places with the highest levels of skin cancer on the planet is Australia and Israel. Those are the two places with the highest degrees of skin cancer on Earth. We know that in Australia, we know that the original Australians were the Aboriginals. They were African people. And we know the history that the white people, what they did to the African people in Australia, they wiped them out. So you got white people living in an area that was originally black, and now they have the highest level of skin cancer. So yes, they're selling plenty of sunscreen over there. Okay, and in Israel, Israel is actually in the continent of Africa. I've created a lot of videos that talk about that. But there is a there is something that I found. It actually said this was an article. It says, "Dying to be Israel, the high cost of living in the Holy Land without melanin." Boy, that's interesting. That is just an interesting concept. And what it's basically saying is that, here, I'll just read it for you. It says, did you know that Israelis have the second highest rate of melanoma in the world? Well, they do. And you go to they give you the source. Melanoma is a fatal skin cancer. Da da da. Just to give you a perspective on where Israel is located, here's a map. Notice how close it is to Africa. And what he don't understand is that Israel is actually in Africa. That's another conversation. But Israel is North Africa. It was the farthest. It's the edge of Africa, but it's actually in the continent of Africa. The Middle East is just a region. It's not a continent. The Middle East is not an eighth continent. There are still only 7 continents. Okay, Israel is in the continent of Africa. I know that sounds strange. We don't think about it like that, but that's just what it was. That's just what it is. Israel is in the continent of Africa. I ain't got time to get into that. But we're talking about the Israelis living there, and now they're supposed to be the so-called Jews, but they have the second highest rate of skin cancer. So they're saying that they went back home. They call it the right of return, whatever they call it. They have a right to be there because their ancestors were there. Well, I'm wondering how did that work out, because I don't know if they had sunscreen back then, in the Bible days. It says something doesn't add up. According to the CDC, black people have the lowest, and this list is a link. Black people have the lowest rate of melanoma, and white people have the highest rate of melanoma. Here's a chart. So you can look at all this stuff in the Bible. In the Bible, the Hebrews spent almost their entire existence between Africa and Israel. And actually, Israel is in Africa, so the whole Bible was written in Africa, but without any form of cancer treatments currently available. Now, you can get into this. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Here's another article talking about Israel skin cancer rate second in the world. The skin cancer rate in Israel is among the highest in the world. The Israel Cancer Association reported yesterday, now this was in 2003, at the end of 2000 there were 3,631 skin cancer patients in Israel, and around 200 die every year from the disease. Now that's nothing to celebrate. We're not happy about nobody dying. We're just putting everything in its proper perspective. All right, this is what we're doing. Truth is freedom. It just proves that the original Hebrews had to be an African people. All right, Hebrews were African. When we think of African, we usually always think about just sons of Ham, and I don't have time to get into all of that. But nevertheless, Hebrews were an African people. They were Africans with the covenant. All right, so you got a people who's dying to be Israel, dying to be somebody that they're not. It's just, it's just not working. It's just not working. I was going to show this video of black men. I'm not going to play this because it may seem mean, but they just make the point. I think this is either in Australia or South Africa, one of the two. But this was a true commercial about the UV brand sunscreen. Just look it up and watch it yourself. But listen. Black people have a natural sunscreen. The slaves didn't have sunscreen. You know, how did they make it? How in the world did they make it on the plantations? They didn't have sunscreen. You know, they just did it. How did black people survive without sunscreen? You know, and that just don't fall for the whole thing that, you know, when you hear about Bob Marley, he didn't die from sun exposure. All right? That's just not what happened. So black people have to understand we are a great people. Okay? We have advantages that we need to know about. And these things have not been told to us, but quite honestly, they weren't supposed to be told to us. I'm going to just leave with this. Deuteronomy 29:29. It says, the secret things, the secret things belong unto the Lord our God. But those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. But it says the secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong to us and to our children. In other words, these things weren't hidden from us. They were hidden for us. They weren't hidden from us. They were hidden for us.